Welcome to the Web3 podcast. I'm your host, Travis Rosser, and I'm so excited you're here to learn more about Web3 and how it's going to change your business. Hey, welcome back to another Web3 show presented by 1Mint. Today I have Fernando with me. Hey, Fernando, what's going on?
Hey, Travis. Thanks for having me as always.
Awesome. Today we're going to talk about blockchain business, kind of an informal conversation, and just really talk about Web3 and how it's changing business. I love this idea because I'm a business person, so I'm always thinking about what's changing, what's new. I think on one of the first episodes I talked about this. There was a podcast called the Web 2.0 show that I used to listen to back in 2007. And that podcast, it was very crude. It wasn't done very professionally, but man, it gave me so many business ideas. I would listen to those guys all the time because back then they were talking about Web 2, which was, building things on frameworks and user saved data and, the beginning of the Shopify's and the Facebooks and Instagrams. And they were really talking about how technology could make it easier. And now with Web3 and blockchain, technology is even more disruptive and there's more possibilities. So I'm excited to dive in. I'll pass it over to you. Where do you want to get started on this topic?
All right. Well, I guess I can just pick it up from where you left. I mean, I think it's an exciting time because we are seeing exactly the same thing going on the Web3 space, where companies are actually starting to, come up following a Web2 type of business model, just being backed by the blockchain itself. So I actually did some digging, and it'd be nice to actually go through a couple of companies that I have on my eyesight. Because these companies, I picked them up specifically because they are Fortune 50 companies. So I wasn't actually looking towards kind of like the new, cool, sexy, innovative type of company, but actual real use case, the type of company that both my dad, my uncle, my auntie knows, that those type of companies.
Sure. The
Yeah,
older established companies. So I think that's important because if they're moving, that shows that this is the future, is this type of technology, which I think we all know that by now. But as I was doing some research, it's funny how often people would say that, like, oh, these companies are doing it, so now it must be legitimate. And we always have to wait for the big giants to move, I guess. But as a startup guy, I like to move quick. Like when I see something that I think will be disruptive or build something cool, I want to go. So I'm excited. Let's talk about it.
yeah, nice one. I guess the first one we could talk about is IBM, which is the tech giant, one of the first ones out there, and the ones that keep kicking ass basically because they're not only working on the private sector but also like backing up government systems and so forth. I mean, these guys are huge, and just having these people actually develop on top of well, in this case, their own blockchain. That kind of paves the way to several other businesses and sub businesses into the ecosystem. For example, recently, well, actually not so recently, it's been a couple of years already. They've been working closely with Walmart, for example. And the fun thing about this is that they are using the blockchain in the means of scaling their business in the most error-less manner, in the most effective manner. Because hear me out on this one. This one is crazy.
Okay.
You know how you got on the Web2 technology, you've got basically databases and the whole back end of things that people usually don't care about. They only see the front end.
Of course.
All right. So in most businesses today, any business that has an application or a system that is built on Web2, it's prone to have mistakes, especially when you scale it up. If you start dealing with millions of like data by the minute, by the hour, by the day, it's only natural that you're going to get discrepancies, that you're going to see errors, duplicates of lines, and it's prone to error. That's the whole thing about Web2. I mean, it came in, it boosted everything in the global economy. But eventually with scalability and globalization, there's been so much data that it's kind of hard to actually keep track of it. And that's how you ended up having data scientists, data analysts to type of, to kind of like give shape to those, to that data. So what they're doing what they're doing actually with Walmart is that they've created a system where they can track um, the food supply chain from the very first provider all the way to the client. And
Nice.
imagine we're talking about blockchain, right?
Hmm.
So blockchain is immutable. So whatever you put up there, it's gonna stay there and it's gonna be it forever and ever, right?
Yeah, of course.
So now try to think of it in a scalable manner, in the means of handling millions of products by the day in hundreds of countries, in even thousands of cities. Who knows how many millions of stores that they've got, and try to picture that each one of these stores or shopping malls or whatnot, they each have their own system. So it's virtually impossible on a Web 2 manner to kind of build a system that gives you the overall holistic view of things. I mean, it could be possible, but it's going to be full of errors.
Yeah.
Uh, so some of the processes that usually involved days, if not weeks, in regards of, like tracking food, tracking providers, tracking suppliers, and so forth.
Yeah.
Now it's being reduced to just a few minutes of time just because of the power of the blockchain. I mean, it's a huge milestone.
That's so interesting. A long time ago, I worked on a project because where I grew up in the middle of farmland here in California, and I had met these guys that wanted to create this thing called Lot Path, and it was like you could take a piece of fruit, and I don't know if you notice that sometimes fruit will have a little sticker that will then have like a UPC. Now it probably has a QR code, and back then, this is probably 2000, I don't know, 6, 7. They wanted to say, here's where this fruit came from. This fruit came from this farm in California, and now it's here at your store in Los Angeles or whatever. But how cool would that to be able to do that with every product? Like just for like all this stuff, because we want to talk about sustainability and like how did it impact the environment? Are they, is there labor laws? Like you could actually follow this tennis shoe and go, here's where this tennis shoe came from. Here's the company that made it and manufactured it and shipped it. And that's pretty cool. Like just the personalization of a product and the accountability. And then the other thing, something happened with, was it Chipotle? It was here in California years ago. Something, the lettuce or something had salmonella on it. People started getting sick.
Oh, damn.
And so back then, they were able to track it a little bit. But imagine like if a product needed to be tracked for safety issues. Another thing, when I was a kid, Tylenol, the medicine for like headaches and stuff,
Yeah.
some crazy person was going into stores and puncturing it with needles and putting like poison in it.
Are
And
you
so yeah, this happened in like the 90s or probably the late 90s. So they went and pulled all the Tylenol. But back then, imagine you could know exactly here's this lot, here it is. Like, and these are all these random things I'm thinking about, but
Yeah, probably written down on paper as well, or
no, it was
some.
probably all written in paper. They knew they had to go to this store, but to have the tracking and the data is interesting that Walmart's going to do that. I think all retail will do this. All manufacturing will do this. I mean, everything will make a product and a piece of a product trackable. And like you said, I think, and me not being a technical person, I just have been in technology for a long time. When I think about old databases, they're always like a closed system. It's this big junky thing that nobody knows. Like you said, you had to have a data scientist just to open it up and run reports versus the blockchain that's open and visible. And
Yeah, it's a
I'm
public
assuming that
ledger,
it's,
basically.
yeah, that's right. It's just a ledger. And I think it's lighter. Again, we probably need Greg on this call to really get into the deep details of the technology, but this is interesting. Keep going with that. I know I went off on a tangent, but I know my brain was thinking about all these things. But
No worries, it's the rabbit hole
yeah,
trip, right?
it is the rabbit hole. It's pretty deep
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, it gets deep. I think that's the best part of it. But yeah, I guess in regards of retail and this type of supermarket or hypermarket, we're gonna see a huge change sooner rather than later. Because I believe they already made some tests, and just like you said, in the sense of trying to find what are the affected products if somebody poisoned it with a needle or something, which is crazy.
I
You
know.
could actually do the same and track which was the farmer who produced this type of product and so forth. And everything is just nice and easy. Just just to put it in comparison, when you're talking about Web2 databases, and when you're talking about these big retail companies that are just transnational, international companies, most likely each one of them have their own system built technology-wise, right? Uh,
Mhm.
and, and when you look at it on a technical point of view, when you're building a database and when you're talking about the JSON objects, I'm getting a bit technical here, right? But when you're actually building that backend system, it really is, everything is really custom made. There's no backend that is the same as the other, specifically, especially in this type of companies, because you know you might be in North America or South America, which might not be the same way that the programming team executes the whole system, and maybe Europe has a different way of doing it. Imagine Asia, everything is just completely different from the other. And I just find it fascinating that with the Web3 technology, you can just funnel everything up into one single logic and one single system that is just foolproof. I mean, it either works or it doesn't. So, you know, I'm quite excited. I'm quite excited to see how these people are going to take that up in the retail space. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you wouldn't think that IBM would be so, I don't want to say they're cutting edge, but they're really diving into something, because in the past they've always been a little late to the game, you know.
Mm.
Me being such a Steve Jobs fan, you watch those like movies they've made about his life and him interacting with IBM, and then Bill Gates interacting with IBM, and they always seem so, because they're old school. They're the guys that made the typewriter. They made the first, interactive machine, the keyboard machine. So
And I believe
interesting.
they're working on the quantum computers now, if I'm not
That's
mistaken.
true. Yeah, that's right. They have the computer that beat Jeopardy or whatever. Like,
Well, it would be interesting to see how quantum computing may affect the blockchain technology.
interesting. There's a
Yeah,
whole topic right there. Quantum computing, that stuff's pretty trippy.
it's pretty trippy.
But also pretty cool when they continue to do more of that. So
Um,
awesome.
well, that's just one of the examples that actually caught my attention. The other one is actually a really interesting case, which is Kodak. You know,
Okay.
Kodak,
Another
the
old school, of
photography
course.
company, of course. And in
Yeah.
fact, Kodak, they were just about, I don't know, a month away from going bankrupt, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they missed the boat because of digital technology, and then because their main source was film. I mean, they're old school processing film. Um,
yeah.
that's interesting. All right, I want to hear this.
Yeah. It's the same company, the one that actually made the cameras that would be used just once,
Hmm.
and and the whole business models was made on a more how would you call it? Not digital, but analogic type of product. And I believe it was 2 years ago, pre-pandemic, maybe 3 years ago, that they made a huge jump by including some digital services, and that's kind of what made them survive their almost bankruptcy. But in the last year and a half, they've been actually working on their own blockchain system, and hear this one out. This one is amazing because it's using the blockchain technology in a real use case scenario. For example, in their blockchain, which is the Kodak One blockchain, if I'm not mistaken, users are able to upload their pictures and have them up just like an NFT would work, and they would earn Kodak coins that they could use to either pay for other pictures and so forth. And this allows users to actually make sure that their images are copyrighted and taken care of, and not being able to sell them or missell them or having other people steal them, just kind of like the Web2 stock pictures that some of them are free, others are paid. But in this sense, Kodak was able to, implement the blockchain technology and allow users to, build on top of that and back their art and their photography on their chain. I thought that was absolutely impressive, because that means that we are seeing players from different industries that are starting to come into the game and actually playing it quite well. It's fantastic what they made.
That's very cool. Yeah, I just Googled Kodak One because I want to see this here. Their blockchain initiative. I have to dive in even deeper. This is so cool. So can you like, do you know if you can like mint this into an NFT, or is that what it's doing? Is each photo kind of becoming an NFT or?
Yeah, there we would have to see the smart contract behind to kind of understand how that works. But on a very holistic manner, basically what they're doing is giving users the means to capitalize their content. In this case, pictures, videos, um, which is again a simple and robust and effective way of handling a digital business.
Mhm.
And having these companies just jump into the space is just, phenomenal.
Well, and I was watching a video on I think it's Pinata, the way you do like decentralized images and stuff like that. One of the founders was saying that smart contracts and NFTs allow data to have a story, where you have a photo and then it has a story behind it, like who created it, who owned it in the past. And that's kind of what an NFT is in a smart contract, really. It's like, Fernando created this NFT, he's selling it for this much, and then Travis buys it. And it's really about having a story behind each piece of data. And photos is the perfect example of a story because that's what it basically is most of the time. So that's really interesting. Lots of
I think the most crucial part to tap in that sentence would be ownership.
mhm,
Because we are
very
seeing
much.
for the first time with Web3 that you can own your data. So far, the owners of the data are the top tier companies like
Mhm.
Facebook, Google, all of these huge companies that manage most of the world's data. Those are the owners. And the saying goes that if you don't pay for it, you're the product, right?
That's right. If it's free, then you're paying for it with something else, which is
Yeah.
very true. Yeah, all of these platforms depended on us interacting with them, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, what's the one my wife is on all the time, TikTok. I mean, that platform exists because the users interact with it. And this whole concept of owning the data is new. I think we've yet to see a way to where it comes together as a massive community like the Web 2 world did. Um, that'll be cool when someone does that, where you own all the data, you own everything, but there's a place to come to with everybody else. Like
I've
that'll be
got
cool.
this social media platform. I just don't remember the name of it,
Mm,
but basically what they're doing, they're creating a social media platform just like Facebook, Twitter, just a place where people can come and hang out digitally online.
mm-hmm,
And the whole idea is to kind of win the battle against censorship,
mm-hmm,
uh, which is
mm,
happening even more by the hour, by the day, in every single one of these platforms, where if you don't go and play with the rules of each of these platforms, you basically get banned. So
mm-hmm.
it's kind of like a very dirty game that these top tier companies are
I
playing
know.
with us.
Yeah.
That I mean,
Well,
most people
we've dealt with
say,
it so much here in the US with politics and like all the things that they've been able to do because they know the data, and then they can throttle one account up and down. And all those things start from a good place, I assume, sometimes, but then the wrong people take over. And it's like, how can
starts
we
to get
live
dark.
how can we live in a world where we could just be ourselves and not be regulated? Because regulations always comes back in. There's always a reason why. Otherwise it's the Wild West. So I don't know, I'm curious, what is that social media look like? I always say that someone should bring back MySpace, the original MySpace. Like, I mean,
I remember, yeah.
yeah, it was so interesting because there were so many mistakes they made when they built MySpace. Like, one thing was they left part of the code open and nobody knew that. But then, younger kids started figuring out I can add styles and then they would create these random pages. And I always hated that about Facebook, how it's very sterile and it's exactly the same and rigid. I would love to have a MySpace again where I could build out the page however I want it to be. And it would
Mm,
still be a social place to come to and interact with others. In fact, my wife and I were at an event. In fact, it was my very first crypto event back in 2018. And I met Tom, who was one of the founders of MySpace. And I don't know if you remember when you joined MySpace, Tom became your friend. He was
yeah.
like your first friend. It's like a photo of him sitting like this. And I met him, and it's so funny that like I even told him, I was like, you got to rebuild MySpace. Someone needs to rebuild completely free social network, free meaning freedom, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
be
completely.
who you want to be. And again, the problem is everybody going to be good? If everybody played by the rules, not even the rules, just decency as a human, you don't need rules, just be kind, you know? Like
Mm.
the whole Google statement is, do no evil. If
Yeah.
you could somehow just make that be the only rule, no evil, be
That's
kind.
going to be a hard one, though. I mean, there's so much hate going on
So
online.
much,
That
so much
I think,
decisiveness. I know.
yeah, I think we need a cultural revolution first and education before tackling something like that.
Yeah, this is a whole
Specifically
nother
for the younger
topic for
generation.
sure. We need a be kind NFT. I don't.
That's not bad.
All right, let's get back on topic. So you're talking about Kodak and their like platform. How do
Yeah,
you know how you interact with it? Like, I'm trying to look online. I'm at kodakcoin.com. I don't know if this is it or not. Um,
I believe they were working on the demo. If they're out, they should be on the beta testing version. Actually, let me just pull it up. Well, you can actually see the Kodak coin that is already purchasable.
mm,
But in any case, if they're not on the beta testing, they should be already live. But it's fantastic. It's already a marketplace
yeah,
for images where photographers, artists can come in and basically, like put up their work and they're able to basically track their work and their ownership in a more scalable and foolproof manner. Like I said, the Web 2 has a lot of flaws. I mean,
mm,
it paved up the way for so many companies and technologies to come up, but now with scalability and globalization, you start to see a lot of problems coming up on the back end side of things, specifically with the manipulation of data. That's where
mm,
it gets messy.
yeah,
And then in regards of this platform, for example, I can already see not just in regards to photography, but even for, do you remember DeviantArt? I
mhm,
think it
yeah,
still exists.
of course,
I,
yeah.
s- yeah, I
Just a big
believe
marketplace of artists, and they could showcase their work, and definitely, it's still around. I think.
it's still around, isn't it?
Mhm.
And if it's around, I would put my hand in the fire that it's actually implementing blockchain technology.
Interesting.
Let me see what Google says about this.
Yeah, it's
Uh, they do.
do
They do.
they?
Look at this update. DeviantArt Protect Now detects potential NFT infringement. They
Oh,
actually do.
nice.
Wow, that's a nice one. I remember when I was a teenage boy, just going through DeviantArt and
Yeah,
look
it's
at that.
crazy because if you go to deviantart.com, everything on here could be an NFT. It's like everything on their homepage they're showcasing. Like we just did the episode with Lawrence, and like all of his work was so fascinating. That's probably the coolest thing that's happening right now is how creators are able to really build a business. You don't have to be a starving artist anymore, if you will. This technology and these opportunities allow the creators to really, you know, build something. And again, you could in the past, but if you did it on Instagram or YouTube, they became the wealthy ones. Now it's like the power is in the creator's hands, and it's going to be awesome to see what new startups help them, like what new technologies allow these creators to do even more, because it's such a creator economy right now. And that's, as a consumer of creative stuff, I love it. Like I love new music or new things on Netflix or just all that stuff. So, or new video games.
Browsing through new stuff,
Sure.
recommendations.
Yep.
Well, I like to mix both business and technology, usually
Mhm.
in most of my daily doings. And then seeing these companies, when you analyze them on a technical point of view, you see that the scalability issue, it's already solved out because of the tracking, the ability of tracking on a public ledger, and considering that public ledger, the blockchain is
Mhm.
immutable. uh, I always do emphasis on that point because it really is important to get that across people, right? We see that the manipulation of data starts to become much easier and easier to handle at least, which leads me to this third company that actually just blows my mind into what they're doing, which is actually Ford, the Ford car company. They've been actually working together with BMW and General Motors, yeah.
Hmm.
And they created, what was it called? The Mobility Open Blockchain, or MOBI in short. And basically it's a blockchain that they've created and started to implement in the newest cars to try to kind of like, in this case, we've been talking about blockchain in most cases for 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 trading for trading as a concept, right? Where you have a digital asset and you're able to transfer it, sell it, buy it, do whatever you want with it, right? But that's not only the only function of the blockchain. That's why I make the emphasis on the data manipulation. They're using a blockchain technology to actually store the data that the how would you call it, the non-tripulated cars, the non-autonomous cars
Hmm.
that you don't need to drive, which is like crazy. I'd always thought as a kid that's going to be the future, like in the
Yeah,
2300 year, whatever.
sure.
It's actually happening now. And they're doing some testing with blockchain technology and to track the every data that these cars are actually resolving when they're driving around, right? And when you think about it in a technical aspect and on a business aspect, if you can store data in an immutable fashion and it's also scalable and you can then analyze that data, it's going to be interesting to see how the data analyst jobs and the data scientist job is going to evolve in this type of niche, because it really makes things much easier. Imagine just having a holistic view and not having to worry about duplicates in line of a database or some data not just not going across, or server issues. We're talking about a distributed ledger system across different servers, different computers, and each computer has their own copy of the blockchain, right? So it is really immutable. So if you think about it, we're just starting on a blockchain revolution. So in a few years' time, we're going to have enough data to actually evolve from that. And that's going to be really interesting.
That is,
And
and this is something that Elon has said about Tesla, that his main thing he thinks that he has is the data that Tesla collects, obviously because they're driverless cars and they're collecting all this data on the roads. So this thing with Ford, is it collecting data like on the vehicle, like if it's having trouble, if it needs to have service, and also where it's traveling and how fast it's going, and like pretty much every data point the vehicle goes through is being tracked in the system?
yeah, basically that's what they do. They track all of it. They track
Mm-hmm.
everything that goes through their mechanic and electronic system.
Mm-hmm.
It's saved, right? But instead of being saved in an Amazon cloud or in a Google cloud, it gets saved into their own blockchain. And that piece of data can be either whatever the car is actually looking when driving autonomously.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever seen how they do the programming of autonomous cars.
I've seen some of the videos where they show some like where it's like seeing the 3D version of the road and the little boxes and squares. And
Yeah,
one
exactly.
one time we were in Phoenix years ago, and they had these self-driving minivans that would drive around, and nothing was in it too. It was a trip, and it had all these bubbles on top of it and all these cameras, and I can't not remember what that startup was called, but you could see it was like testing, can it see? And I've driven in Teslas with my friends. I've never gotten a Tesla just because I mean the technology is incredible, but the one time I drove with a friend where he was like, let's just go for it. And literally a car pulled out in front of us and the Tesla did not see it. And if he hadn't have been there to slam on the brakes, I'm like, I would have died. But it's interesting that it can see these things. Like it can tell this is a bicycle, this is a truck, here's a car three up. It's so fascinating. that it can do all of this. Like,
Tesla is it goes above and beyond. I mean, the other day I was having this debate, right, with a friend that he couldn't believe the valuation of the company considering the amount of cars that they sell, right? It doesn't seem logic, and I would understand that completely. I would think the same thing. In fact, I used to think the same thing. This is a bubble. This is impossible. How can they be worth more than any other car company put together? And not sell even a fifth of what they're doing. But then again, they're a data company.
yeah.
It's just like Uber, for example.
Mhm.
I believe Uber was went in they were losing for 3 years straight ever since they launched globally. But right, once they gathered all that data, they rebuilt their business model, considering all the flaws and opportunities, and that's when they became like a monster, basically.
Yeah, Elon's also said that the data on manufacturing is their biggest like secret sauce because they're so good at robotic manufacturing and how to build those mega factories that he has. And that's kind of the future too, is being able to build things quickly without as much human interaction, and it allows prices to go down and things to be built faster. You know, I can't wait till the day until trucks can be driverless. Like we just drove from Southern California to Northern California, and to get there, you have to go through this mountain range called the Grapevine, which has one freeway on it, which is normally no problem. Well, there was a fire last Wednesday, so they closed the Grapevine. And on Friday afternoon, my wife and my son and I are driving north, and the freeway was just jammed. And so we decided, let's get off the freeway. And now we're off on a side road with hundreds of trucks. And I'm just like, there's got to be an easier way to move things than a giant truck. Like they need almost a way to where an autonomous vehicle could then move freight on its own roadway somewhere. I don't know. Elon needs to build the tunnels and then
Yeah.
his hyperloop, and then you could just put a truck in there and
Oh, that would be interesting.
because the
That would
way
make the supply chain
that
much
wouldn't that be so cool? Like if you
yeah.
had the hyperloop right from like the port, and then the truck just goes in there, and then it obviously has to deal with the last mile of freight, and delivery. But some of this long haul stuff,
Those,
I don't
those
know.
things kind of scare me though. I'm not gonna lie. Like over globalization, I don't know how. I mean, when I'm just thinking about fruits, for example. It's a silly example, right? But you've got some fruits that they send from across the globe just to get
Mhm.
you, like a mango from Brazil into your Alaska fridge. And
Yeah.
then, I mean, I guess we could. I don't want to go too much into the rabbit hole here, right? But I guess if the whole idea of decentralization kind of goes in hand of a better, more fair and distributed world, all of this new technology coming up, like the Hyperloop, it's obviously going to impact the supply chain and
Mhm.
and it's gonna be tricky to see. Well, at least I got my suspicions, right, of seeing how international commerce and supply chain is gonna start working, because obviously only the USA or some European countries are gonna have the Hyperloop. The rest of the world are just gonna be providers for that reign, right? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Will the Hyperloop be as common as like a rail, like a train track, or is it only going to be in the more populated and in more wealthier areas of the world, if you will? I don't know. Like in California, because of earthquakes, I don't even know if we'll ever even be able to do it. Like I think Elon has already tested it. But I've always heard that that's always the fear, that when you build tunnels in California and there's an earthquake, that things can go really wrong.
yeah, I wouldn't want to be there.
Yeah. I don't know. All right, what do you got next on your list of cool old school companies?
Yeah, well, the last one I want to talk about is actually a fintech company. We're talking about Paxful. For those of you maybe who don't know, it's just a payment provider.
Hmm.
We could call it like a PayPal type of competitor or a TransferWise type of company. And basically I think this is a more common type of example, but still it's worth mentioning it, because they're applying the blockchain, and so far they've always been focused on a Web2 fiat fiat currency model. And recently they've implemented the peer-to-peer market utilizing blockchain technology. And when companies, fintech companies from the Web2 world start to implement this in finances, that's where we see middle to big players coming into the game, right? Because those are the ones that got the capital, right? The actual big investment, and having these type of companies using the blockchain technology to back up their transactions, their operations, and so forth, that kind of allows a new segment of users to go into the Web3 space. I'm gonna make a parenthesis there, right there. Going into the Web3 space as a user who's never done it is a pain. It really is a pain in the ass. Yeah, I kid you not. Like I'm talking about, I don't know, like my uncle, my dad, like, like all these people that they barely know how to, open up the camera and send you a WhatsApp with a picture.
Yes.
Imagine having these people trying to open up the MetaMask wallet, the seed phrase, and the
Yeah.
connection, the blockchain. What are you talking about? But these companies are taking it in their hands to create
Mhm.
this system with the user experience behind, with the user interface that allows users to easily interact with the blockchain and get to interact with the blockchain in a more easily manner. I think that when companies starts to make the process more simple, that's when we're going to see a more mass adoption of the blockchain. Because I kid you not, even myself, I work with the blockchain every day. I'm on the Web3 business development side of things, but I'm also a developer. I do web applications and so forth. And it is a pain, man. It really is a pain to go deep into the blockchain. It's you have to be really careful and know what you're doing. And I understand when people come in and they have no clue where to start, because it still is so early
Oh
that
yeah.
the processes are not fluid.
Well, and for most people, like the mass population of the world, the closest they're going to get to blockchain is buying a Bitcoin somewhere, maybe, buying some crypto, which isn't that easy. I mean, now that there's Coinbase and other things, it's possible. But yeah, when it comes to actually like dealing with a wallet, I myself have lost thousands of dollars on wallet mistakes, sharing the wrong code or forgetting a phrase. Like it's so early when it comes to that technology. But the good news is companies like what you guys are doing at One Mint is you're putting user experience and technology on top of that. So us users that aren't very smart can do these great things, because it's really about, some people buy a great car and they don't know anything about the engine, but they still enjoy the car. And then there's a ton of people that do know the engine. And sometimes I'm like, how do you know that much about this engine? You can go as deep as you want, but regardless, blockchain and Web3 is going to disrupt business, and it's going to continue to create new opportunities. It's going to get rid of a lot of the old things. That's why it's kind of cool that you had old school businesses in this episode. How are they going to step into it? But I think the other exciting thing is new companies like you guys, how you can build something so quickly. What Greg did in just right at about a year is pretty powerful. And that's the same thing we used to think back with Web 2 is, oh my God, we could build this thing that did this small thing. And now that the blockchain has brought this whole new universe, it's so exciting. And like I was saying, I think one of our episodes is either new startups or startup ideas. That needs to be an episode. We'll do a whole episode on that,
Yeah, we definitely have to do that. Yeah.
because I think all of this is just so, to me, it's super exciting. I love talking about this stuff, but there's so many things that are going to make our lives easier and better. So
I think one
very
of the
cool.
you touched a really good point right there, because well, we've been around for a year already. I believe next
Hmm.
week we're turning 1 year
Yeah,
old.
September is, yeah, it's coming
Yeah.
up.
And one of the things we always keep in mind, in fact, the countless hours of just debating and brainstorming the best way possible to make the experience of dealing in the blockchain the most user-friendly possible. That's why we are the leading no-code NFT generator out there. Well, now we're at Launchpad. You can do it much more than just launching an NFT collection. But we always kept in mind the user experience behind, because if you even I believe fellow web developers, if they listen to this, that they're going to relate. I just writing code, it can be quite painful. Writing code and testing can be really a headache, and it's not meant for everybody. And it doesn't have to be.
No.
Just like these companies, just like you said, you don't need to know how to build an engine. You just need to know how to drive, right?
Yeah, and enjoy it.
Enjoy it, right? I think when companies start to kind of take the approach that we try to do every single day, and make life, the user's life, easier, that's when we're going to see the best adoption of the technology. And I believe it's going to be much sooner than later.
It's awesome. Yeah, I know that like one of the things that kind of got Greg into this was how much code was required just to build a collection. Like the only thing you could find back when Greg was building, the NFT generator, the first version of 1Mint, it was because it required so much code. And I think that's why I get excited about all the business opportunities, because there's still so many things that require a lot of code that someone could come in and build, and who knows what new business they might create. So this has been awesome. Good stuff.
Yeah, nice one.
Very cool. Thank you for coming on here today.
Well, thanks to you, Travis. Always a pleasure. I'm really excited about being here and just keep going at it.
Yeah, awesome. All right, guys, thanks for watching or listening to this. This has been another episode. We will see you next time. This episode of the Web3 Show is brought to you by 1Mint. Make sure you visit onemint.io to see all the amazing technology they're developing.